guys, welcome back to the Holy Happy Hour. I hope you have a drink because we have a great episode for you. We're going to get right to the interview. I'm not going to keep this too long because I know most of you guys are here because Keith Nestor is on the podcast today. We are super excited. That was such a great interview, and I'm so excited that someone of his caliber, and I know he would never admit it, but I'm so excited someone of his caliber would come on and share a little bit about his testimony and talk about the faith. I was super, super grateful. And honestly, that interview came at such a great time. I didn't even have the chance to talk to him about this. I didn't want to keep him too long. I know he's busy. I know he's constantly being hit up for doing other interviews and stuff. And I'm just so grateful that he was even on in the first place. But it came at such a perfect time because I honestly, if you follow along, which I know we have like a handful of people that really follow along and are constantly tuning in, you're probably realizing that the channel has kind of slowed down a little bit. And there's a couple reasons. I mean, still in this transition to focus, and there's still been a little bit of figuring out the schedule. But also, just to be honest, like with the content creating, there's a little bit of discouragement and I don't know, frustrations that can come with it sometime. And it's always, I want to say self-inflicted because it's always when I get caught up in the numbers and how someone performs and I'll do somewhere. I think it's the best interview I've ever done, which the interview I did with Taylor and with Desiree. I truly think that's the best overall, like from a content perspective, the best video that is on my channel. And when you put a lot of effort into something like that, and then you have all these, you raise your bar and you have all these hopes, and then it's not met. I feel like it's just that the enemy's setting you up and then hitting you down. When honestly, at the end of the day, it actually didn't do really well. We had like 10 people watching live while it premiered, and it was great. And then the enemy can just use like the little things to like get at you. But always trying to keep my mindset in the fact with the fact that this channel is for me first. That I am here to grow in my faith. I'm here to have conversations with you so I can grow in my faith, and then with that, hopefully that 1 to 10 to 100 people that listen get something out of it and that they can also grow in their faith too. Because at the end of the day, this is all about us growing closer to God, growing closer to the one true church that Jesus Christ established. And I hope that you guys get something out of that. So I just want to share that with you though, but just know we're not going anywhere. I did have a little bit of a discernment of whether to stop doing the channel or not. But like I said, honestly, this interview was something where I had such a fun time doing it. And I have some awesome guests lined up. I felt like this isn't the time to stop. This is the time to continue with the commitments we have. And I'm just super excited to be able to share this interview with you and then share all the videos with you to come. We are going to be starting the Salvation History series very soon. I'm super excited for that because that's such a rich study that I know that any video I put out, I could put an hour-long video on each chapter, which there's like 10 of them in this study. I could put an hour-long video on each one, and you guys could comment along and say, well, yeah, and also, like, have you thought about this? Or you could add this to this part of this chapter. There's no way we could get it all into one series. So that's what I'm the most excited about. You guys can comment along. You guys can share your favorite parts about salvation history too. But just understanding from the fall to the proto-evangelium, where we're given the hope right away, right after the fall, right after man is cast out, and there's this huge chasm. We're actually given this hope right away because God loves us that much and wants to draw us close to him. And then we're going to see how each character throughout the Old Testament really sets us up for then having Jesus Christ come to redeem all of us. So I'm really excited for that series. But let's get to it. This is what you guys came here for. I'm super excited that we had Keith Nestor on the podcast. We're just, like I said, just super grateful to have someone of his caliber, but also just with such an amazing story. I think his story truly is an inspiration to never give up on any of your friends. And if you guys aren't aware, he was a Protestant pastor before becoming Catholic. And so that was the awesome thing about it was he would have been probably some of you have that friend that's like a Protestant pastor or a very, very devout Protestant that you maybe think to yourself, there's no reason, there's no purpose in like to try to evangelize. There's no point because that person will never become Catholic. I mean, I said that when my wife first invited me to mass, I said, I'll go, but I will never become Catholic. And so I just love his story because I feel like it's an inspiration to all of us to still invite that person, still have those conversations, still start that process, because you just never know how the Holy Spirit's going to work. You never know if you're that person just to plant a seed, or you never know if you're that person that finally is the person that takes a person over the edge, that they're finally like, okay, I want to do this. I understand it. So I hope you guys enjoy it. It was great. It's a little short, little 45-minute interview. You guys comment along any questions you have. He's typically great about responding, but I also got to talk to him a little bit outside the recording as well. So I would love to respond to any questions you guys have. You guys get feedback in the comments. Other than that, we'll raise a glass to Keith Nestor, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Holy Happy Hour. All right, guys, I am here with Keith Nestor, and Keith, how's it going?
It's going great. How you doing?
No, I am doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so awesome to have people, and I don't want to try to pump up your ego or anything, but like someone of your caliber on the show, I'm just so blessed. I'm so blessed to have you on. People all the time are like, how'd you get Keith Nestor on the show? And I was like, I emailed him and he responded and said he would do it. And they're like, so
not that complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for being on. And I'm super excited to kind of hear more about your story. And then just coming to Catholicism. And
Yeah.
so I thought maybe we'd kind of jump right into it and
Sure.
kind of go kind of what you were growing up, and we'll kind of move through your story, and I may interject with questions and stuff as we go.
Sounds great. Yeah. So I grew up United Methodist. My dad is a retired United Methodist pastor. So I grew up going to church, preacher's kid, all that kind of stuff. Raised in that environment, but really came into my own faith in a strong way, like through I was a big church camp nerd. So I went to church camp when I was growing up. And then all through my high school years, I worked as a counselor for this church camp. Absolutely loved it. And it was very evangelical type of emphasis. We really wanted kids to receive Christ and grow in their faith. And then when I was about 19, 20, I started going to a Calvary Chapel church. I moved out to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania from Iowa, where I grew up. And I was playing drums in a band that was out there. So I moved out there to do that. And I started going to Calvary Chapel, which is a real big, like, expositional, verse by verse, Bible focused type of church. And really just, that's the thing that sort of connected with me in a way like nothing else really had. So I became like addicted to the Bible, and going to church there. So then while I was there, I felt a call to like renew my life to God. It's like, okay, God, if you want me to do something different with my life, not just be a Christian, but like, what do you want me to do with my life? Show me what to do. And then I got a call from an old buddy of mine who was a Methodist pastor back in Iowa, who was looking for a youth pastor for their church. Small church, about 250 people in a neighborhood in Iowa. And I didn't really want to do it, but I felt like, okay, if this is an opportunity that God's putting in front of me, I should at least check it out. So I went back, interviewed for this job, and they offered it to me, and I felt like, well, okay, I guess this is what God wants me to do. So then I became, a youth pastor. And this was in 1995. And while I was in Philly, though, I met a girl who is now my wife. But when I met her, she was raised Catholic, but didn't really go to church. Went to Catholic school, but didn't really know her faith. And I met her and I wanted to date her. And I was like, hey, are you a Christian? She's like, well, I'm Catholic. Does that count? And I said, no, Catholics aren't Christians. Come on,
Yeah.
So I took her to church with me and she loved it and got saved there and all this kind of stuff. And then we got married after I became a youth pastor. And I finished school and all that kind of stuff. That was just my like trajectory of ministry. And so really that's kind of how I got started in the faith was through that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. My wife introduced me to the faith as well. And I kind of had a similar response when first invited to mass, or just invited into the faith, was that like, I was like, Ann, I'll go to mass with you. I will never become Catholic. It's not going to happen. This was 6 years ago. So I went from that 6 years ago.
What were you before that?
So I have a term that I coined, the status quo Baptist.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very small town. And so if anyone's watching has never heard me use this term, I call us status quo Baptist because we only went to the Baptist church because I grew up in a small town and we went because everybody else went. So my parents hated when people said, "Man, we missed you at church. Where were you?" And they hated that. So we would go every single week, even though like I grew up
Baptist guilt.
Baptist. And people could ask, like, so what are the main differences between Baptist and Catholics? Like, I would be like, well, I can tell you all about the Catholic faith. I actually don't know anything about the Baptist church. I do now a little bit, but I used to say that. I'm like, I don't even know anything about the Baptist church. So like, you grew up Baptist. I was like, yeah, I couldn't tell you. We're status quo Baptists.
Yeah.
But
People,
I got involved in non-denominational churches. Life Church, Church on the Move is a church here in Tulsa, and I loved it. And that's what
oh,
actually,
Willie George.
yeah. And
Yep.
so I fell in love with those, and that's what kind of ignited my faith, just for like a love of Jesus, wanting to live a moral life, and yeah. So that was kind of my
When I
background.
was when I was a youth pastor, we had this rock star evangelist guy came through town,
Mhm.
and we had him preach at our church. His name was Scott Groulet, and
Hmm.
Scotty Groulet was the youth pastor at Church on the Move. Like
Okay,
it was probably 20 years ago,
I was gonna say the
and
name sounds familiar.
the dude was just awesome, man. He
Yeah,
was awesome,
yeah.
and I don't know where he ended up, but but he was from that church,
Yeah.
so I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, something that you had mentioned earlier, and I actually had this question for someone that I think it was last week, but maybe you have a little bit more insight to it. It is funny that some people don't believe Catholics are Christians, but for me, I was kind of always an open book. When I came into, it was RCI at the time. When I came into OCA, I didn't have any objections to Catholic faith because I knew nothing about it. So I was kind of a blank slate. But there are people that are like, no, like Christians aren't Catholics. John Christ has the funny bit in his little stand up where it's like, switch denominations from one to another denomination, from one Christianity to another Christianity. And someone raised their hand and said, well, I was non denominational, but now I'm Catholic. He goes, no, I said one Christianity to another Christianity, just making a joke. But I don't know if you had like any insight, like why people would think that Catholics are not Christians.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, because the Catholic Church, it doesn't have this. It doesn't talk in the same way
Mm-hmm.
about things. In like the evangelical world, a lot of it has to do with the way that you speak about things. Okay.
Mm.
There's certain trigger words that people use to sort of decide whether someone is really on board with them. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
I remember a time when I was in Philly, I was looking for a church. I found this like Pentecostal church, and I
Mm-hmm.
pulled up to the parking lot, and some lady in a Cadillac with big hair and makeup met me, and she was like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Well, I just thought I'd come to church." And she's like, "Well, are you born again? Are you fire baptized?" You know, it's
Yeah.
like, um, well, okay, wait a second. What are you talking about? You know, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
we have a way of talking about things that people are sort of listening for, and Catholics sort of just don't even go to in that direction. They're not
Yeah. Yeah.
they're not worried about like what is the trendy way to talk
Mm-hmm.
the faith. And
Mm-hmm.
they also have some things about them that seem so strange and otherworldly. You know, of course, the
Mm-hmm.
papacy, of course, things with Mary, you know, different things like that, and the Eucharist, that people just like that is so radically different than what
Mm-hmm.
sola scriptura, Bible only Christianity, evangelical Christianity teaches. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just as easy to say, well, they're just not really like us, which means
Yeah.
that they're not really Christian. You know, not every
Yeah.
Protestant believes that way, you know, but there are
Yeah.
plenty that
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've had conversations with people before where they had taught, and this was they were Catholics, so they were just trying to come up with a reason why someone would think that. But they're like, maybe it's because they think, from the outside perspective, that we put too much emphasis on marrying the saints and too much emphasis on like all the rules and stuff you have to follow, and it's just like we've gotten away from Jesus as the center.
Yeah.
But I think that was for me, like the biggest thing when I was coming into the faith was realizing like this is extremely reverent and it's all about Jesus. It's all about the Eucharist, which is Jesus here on earth and in body, blood, soul, and divinity in the Eucharist. And it was when those things started clicking for me that I just started realizing that I could kind of push that aside, but then also understand the roles of marrying the saints as well. So I guess for that leading into the kind of the next question is what was it for you that maybe kept you like hung up on the Catholic faith? Because obviously I would assume as a pastor you probably had some pretty big hangups before converting.
Well, I think like in the beginning, it was just my lack of knowledge about it. It wasn't even really on my radar. And I
Mm-hmm.
would say the thing that kept me hung up on it, or not, or, you know, that never even like really made me think about it was the fact that the only Catholic people I knew didn't really talk about their faith. They didn't really seem any different than anybody
Mhm.
in the world. Like, I didn't know any on fire Catholics.
Mhm.
Like, all the Catholics I knew were just sort of very, you know, marginal at
Mhm.
best. So there was nothing compelling about any Catholics I knew that would make me
Mhm.
even take their faith seriously.
Yeah.
So that and as a pastor, one of the things I experienced a lot were people coming to our church from the Catholic Church saying things like, "Oh, this is fantastic. We love coming here. We heard the gospel here. The Catholic Church is just old and dead and
Mhm.
lifeless and man, this is totally different." So in our world, we were seeing all these people coming to Jesus. We were having this incredible
Mhm.
like little revival in our church. Our little youth group that we started with 12 kids blew up to like 250, 300 kids.
Wow.
And we saw all this stuff happening, but every Catholic I knew was just coming into our church going, yeah, this is way better. So to me, it was like,
Mhm.
okay, clearly the Catholics they don't really, and none of them knew the faith. None of them knew the Bible. So
Mhm.
that stereotype that people have about the Catholics
Yeah.
you talked about being what did you call it? The Baptist, like
Yeah.
a
Status quo Baptist.
status quo Baptist. You know, there's a lot of status quo Catholics
Yeah.
at best, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of not even status quo Catholics.
Mhm.
And I think that was the thing really for me that caused me just to not even really look into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that for sure because we're realizing I have to explain to people as a focus missionary. They're like, "Oh, where are you going? Are you going overseas, whatever?" It's like, "No, I'm going to a parish in Tulsa, Oklahoma." And they're like, "Does a parish need missionaries?" And the more I've walked with people, the more I realize. And I think it was Mother Teresa who, while visiting the United States, said, "Well, we have like physical poverty where I come from, but here in the United States, it's much worse because you guys have spiritual poverty." And
Yeah,
just realizing that so many Catholics within our pews are just kind of, yeah, living kind of the status quo Catholic, and there was that generation that wasn't very well catechized, and we're hopefully turning that around with this next generation coming. We're seeing that in our parish at least,
that's
but
awesome.
I think it led to people wanting to, even if they were interested in questioning their friends would then be not able to answer like questions about the Catholic faith or defend the Catholic faith, which then led people to just think like, yeah, see, that's just
That's 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 exactly what it was like for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because then I would assume that on the other end, when you have like the churches I was involved in with Life Church and these sola fide type churches where it's just have faith alone, it makes it so much easier to explain that to friends, invite them in, and then church is fun and it fills you with emotions and feelings and stuff, and then it makes it to I don't know, to where it's easier to for people to go out and evangelize. 'Cause I feel like that's where Protestants get Catholics right now is they're not afraid to get out there and evangelize. And I feel like the Catholic Church is kind of I don't know stood not stood still, but yeah hasn't trained up people enough. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's pockets of that, of
Mm-hmm.
people doing that, but I think on a whole that would be accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time you see people out sharing their faith. I mean, they're usually some kind of Protestant group or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
usually like a fringy group kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the Catholics just don't seem to be as worked up about converting Protestants as Protestants are about trying to convert Catholics. Because, like, in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the Protestant mindset, it's not like we're trying to convert Catholics to become Protestants. They're like, they don't even view Catholics as Christians. So in their
Yeah.
mind, it's like being a Catholic is worse than being a non-Christian, because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you have like this compromised, paganized version of the gospel that's
Mm-hmm.
way worse than if someone just doesn't know Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
There's much more hostility towards Catholicism than there is toward people who don't even have a faith at all.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I could see that for sure. Especially because if they truly believe we are worshiping Mary, or I've even seen people say that like the monstrance holding the Eucharist, that's like the same as the golden calves. Like we're like literally
Exactly.
worshiping an idol. And so it makes sense. And that's why I've always actually told people that Protestants are typically coming from actually a really good place. They're actually going out and have a zeal for saving souls, and they just misunderstand what we're doing and where we're coming from.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when your wife, you said she was Catholic or,
Mhm.
or born Catholic, so she sort of introduced you to it, or did she
No,
kind
no,
of?
no, she didn't know anything about it. Like, she was
Okay.
raised 12 years in Catholic school, but
Mhm.
They didn't go to mass, like, her family
Yeah.
didn't practice the faith. It was just you just
Mm.
went to Catholic school because you were Catholic in name only.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
that completely, like, backed up that stereotype that I had of, "Okay, well, yeah, you're just Catholic because you live in a big city and they don't wanna go to public school."
Mm.
But everybody was Catholic, but nobody really did anything.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
when I brought her to Calvary Chapel and she found Jesus, she was like, "Whoa, this is what I've been missing my whole life. This is
Mhm.
amazing."
Yeah.
You know? "What do I do about being Catholic?" I'm like, "Forget about that. That's all just
Mhm.
religious. You know,
Mhm.
that's not Jesus."
Mm.
And she didn't know him. She was like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah. Yeah, and I could see that too, because especially, when people like, we've had Protestant friends go to mass with us,
Mhm.
and they say, like, I didn't really get anything out of that," or, "I didn't really feel anything from that." And I don't know, I feel like sometimes it's definitely flipped where we shouldn't necessarily be going to mass to get something. We should be going to get the Eucharist, but, it shouldn't necessarily be about, like, what we're getting out of it, but more so, like, what we can bring to it. But yeah, I've had those kind of similar
Yeah.
conversations with people. Was there someone in your life though that like made you consider, or was it something that was just you? I mean, you said you fell in love with the Bible
Mhm.
and everything. Was it just kind of you starting to do your own study, or was there someone that you met that kind of challenged your views?
Yeah, it was somebody I met. Um, I was looking for some graphic design work for the ministry that I was a part of,
Hmm.
which, I found a guy who did that. And when I met him, it was pretty obvious to me that he was Catholic,
Hmm.
but he knew his faith. So we started talking about the faith. We started talking about, and of course, when I meet him, I'm thinking I'm going to evangelize this guy, convert
Hmm.
him,
Yeah, yeah.
all this kind of stuff. And he was just not having that. He was like,
Mm.
I went to his house and it was decked out with all this Catholic stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, it looked like a shrine to me. I didn't know what was
Yeah,
going on. So I'm like,
yeah,
what is, but he had a passionate faith in Jesus. So
yeah.
that was the first time I ever met somebody who was Catholic, but actually, like, in my limited understanding,
Hmm.
actually loved Jesus. I mean,
Yeah.
and that was like, whoa, this doesn't compute to me. So we started talking about Catholicism and the faith, and he started sharing the different resources with me, different apologetic things and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And it really made me think about it. And I was in seminary at the time. And I would go and ask my professors, I'm like, hey, what about this? What about that? And I just remember feeling like their answers weren't very satisfactory to
Hmm.
me. And it was really compelling the things he was saying. So I read a few books that he gave me,
Hmm.
and it really challenged me to look deeper into it, which
Yeah.
I did. And I got to a point where I started, I have these mile markers along the way where it's like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm going to accept the idea that maybe there are some Catholics that are Christians,
Hmm.
and then I'm going to get to a point later on where I go, okay, well, the Catholic Church isn't as bad as I thought it was. It's just different.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then I'm like, wow, then there are things about Catholicism where I go, wow, I really like what they teach. They're better than what we
Hmm.
believe, And then it kind of just begins this journey that you go down
Hmm.
from completely like shutting off the Catholic Church, ruling it out, to cracking the door a little bit. Chesterton says that
Hmm.
those who become fair to Catholicism soon become fond of it.
Hmm.
And I think that was like one of those steps for me, was through this relationship, I started to become fair to it,
Yeah.
because it blew up my concept that Catholics don't love Jesus, Catholics aren't
Hmm.
Christians. And then I start, learning about where this stuff comes from. And then it was blown away. And then I'm like, wow, some of this stuff is challenging my own perspective.
Hmm.
So yeah, it really began with that relationship.
That's awesome. And that's cool that it wasn't like it was just a guy that was willing to have a conversation. I think some people are so afraid to get into evangelizing a friend or something, because they feel like, man, if I sit down with this person, they're going to disagree with what I'm saying or whatever. But it's like, no, you don't need to. You need to invest in the person's life and understand that most likely you're not going to change their mind over time, but be willing to have those open conversations. I think in today's age, people just feel like that conversation that you guys had would have ended in some heated debate or heated yelling at each other because
Well,
you
we had
disagree.
that. We
Yeah,
had that. I mean, not at first, but we would get, because we were both young. We both thought we knew
yeah,
everything. We both, try to convert each other, and we had that. We would get pretty contemptuous towards each other, but it
hmm,
was all in love. Like, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, but when you have a friend like that, that you can really just, you can take the gloves off and go at it, and you know that at the end of the day you're still
hmm,
gonna be friends. That's a pretty good deal. You can't do that with everybody, but
yeah,
we could
absolutely,
do that. So
yeah,
he was able to challenge me on a lot of things, and I challenged him on a lot of things too,
hmm,
which caused him to go deeper into his faith.
yeah,
And it ended up being one of those relationships where we really, like, helped each other understand what we believed,
Mhm.
and that was really pivotal for me, and, I stayed friends with him. I'm still friends with him to this day, but that was really the beginning of my journey, was that
Yeah.
relationship when we could go back for and then we'd take breaks. We'd take, like, we wouldn't talk about it for a couple years,
Yeah.
and then we would get real intense about it, and then we would let it go, and then, so it was kinda like it came around full circle many times.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In focus, there our big thing is win, build, send, and it's like winning people over for Jesus, building them up, and then sending them to be missionary disciples. In training, they broke that down even further, which it seems like your friend did just so well. But that win stage is, first of all, building this authentic friendship.
Yeah.
And they said if you skip that and try to go right into build or right into evangelizing someone and telling them about the faith, it most of the time will not work at all. But you have to kind of have this like authentic, like great friendship built. And the more you can just live with someone and walk alongside them and build this trust with them, then you get to that point where you can say something to that effect of say something to push back on them or to like you get in these more heated debates, but it's not going to ruin the friendship or ruin your chances of actually showing them the Catholic faith or showing them the truth.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. We had a Presbyterian pastor on campus at the University of Tulsa where I worked at, and he was there for 3 years, and he just built this great relationship with our catechist, and it was just very similar. They just have these great, well, they call them conversations. They said sometimes they would get a little heated, and sometimes they would find common ground real fast. And it wasn't until like 3 years later where this guy came to him is like, man, I don't know what to do. Like I have to become Catholic, but I'm
Right.
like, I'm going to lose this role and stuff. I don't know what to do. And he just because he built this authentic friendship, was able to tell him delayed obedience is still disobedience. And the guy
Mhm.
just like he said, the guy rolled his eyes and just walked out of my office.
Wow.
And I was like, man, if you would have said that before having an authentic friendship, it may have started a fight or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, that's great. And so, how was it with your wife coming along? Was she pretty much just on board too, like as you learned and shared it with her, or?
Well, not really. Like, at first, I didn't really talk to her about she was kinda freaked out when I would talk to my when I was talking to my friend's name is Devin. So when
Mhm,
Devin and I would talk about the faith, she was kinda like, "What are you doing? Like, looking at Catholicism? What's this
mhm,
all about?" And I'm like, "Oh, don't worry about it, I'm trying to convert Devin and this and that," and
mhm,
then she would hear me talk about it a little bit more and see me studying these things, and I remember one time she was like, "There's not like, you're not gonna become Catholic, are you?" I'm like, "No way. There's not a chance,"
mhm, mhm,
So I didn't really tell her about it, and then I had a moment where I thought about becoming Catholic, and then I really felt like I was supposed to, but I just was too afraid of what it would do to my life, at the time.
mhm,
I mean, I
yeah,
had this family, I had this ministry, I had 3 kids, and I knew it would blow up my whole life, so I was kinda like, "Ah, no, I just gotta put this out of my mind."
mhm,
And I lived like that for a long time.
mhm,
And
yeah,
then, when things sort of started to come back around to Catholicism sort of, a few years later, then I was more sharing with her what I was feeling, and she understood. She still wasn't sure if she wanted to be Catholic. Like, she was
mhm,
like, "I don't know what to do about this." But when I finally told her, I'm like, "Look, I gotta do this. This is just too
mhm,
I just believe it's the truth, and I have to do this to follow Jesus. I know we're gonna blow up our whole life. I know it's gonna be,
mhm,
I don't know what we're gonna do for a job. I don't know what we're gonna do, any of that, but I know I have to do this." She was
mhm,
like, "Well, okay, I'm really proud of you, for
yeah,
following God. I don't know what I'm gonna do." But she eventually decided, you know, that she was going to come back to the church, come with me, not because she wanted to
mhm,
be Catholic, but because she felt like that was the best thing for her to do as a
mhm,
wife. So we went through this whole process. We got our marriage blessed in the church
mhm,
because we got married outside the church, because she didn't care.
mhm, yeah,
So we did our marriage in the church. We I went through a sort of like an ad hoc RCIA program with my priest. She just had to go to
mhm,
confession, because she was a
yeah, yeah,
cradle Catholic.
yeah,
And then we came in, and then, like, for the first year, though, she struggled, she was like,
mhm,
"Oh, I don't," it was hard because now we lost everything and our kids didn't wanna come, and so it was like our
mhm,
family was split up, and
yeah,
it was really hard for her, but a year after we were in the church, we went on a pilgrimage over to Medjugorje,
mm,
and while we were over there, she went to confession, and this priest, like, read her soul,
mm,
and it totally changed everything for her, and she was a different person after that,
oh wow,
and, after that moment, she's on fire for her Catholic faith.
oh wow, that is awesome. That is so cool. And I can't imagine that would be. I feel like even tougher. Um, we were dating at the time, so it was just girlfriend and now wife, but dating at the time, and she invited me in mass. So I can imagine what she was feeling and thinking when I said, "I'll go, but I will not become Catholic," because we were pretty seriously dating at this time, and so I'm sure I made her second guess all sorts
Oh
of like,
yeah.
maybe I don't want to get involved with this, get in this relationship or not. But yeah, but and then when I got there to actually, something I was gonna say earlier, I had that guy just kind of like Devin for you. I had this guy for me, and I was real plugged into Life Church, was loving it. I was going to Bible study. I just started getting that point where I would ask questions and things just like, I was like, that doesn't seem right. I mean, why would God have all these covenants and give them specific tasks and huge things to do? Like all the stories in the Old Testament and the specific ways like they had to like even design the Ark of the Covenant, the
Uh-huh.
specific ways they had to worship and only certain people are allowed to go. And like, why would it be like that? Then all of a sudden he sent Jesus and be like, no, you guys just, as long as you believe that Jesus did that, you guys can do whatever you want. And that's what I was feeling. Uh, and Life Church had this amazing motto, and it's such a great motto. It should be the motto of the Catholic Church, but it's to create fully devoted followers of Christ. And I loved it. And I would ask people all the time what that meant. And kind of similar to your story, I was just like, wasn't getting answers that were like suffice. I was just, anytime
Uh-huh.
someone answer it, I'm like, "Oh, okay, like, I guess, I don't know." It's kind of like when people say you just have to have faith. And if you have faith, you're saved. But then you're like, what about those people that fall away from the like leave the faith? And it's like, well, were never saved in the first place, and just kind of that really interesting stuff. So when I came and finally went to mass that one right after I told my wife I'll never become Catholic, I met this guy. He's now a deacon at our cathedral, and I told him that story. And I said, well, yeah,
Mm.
I've just always this is my background. I've been at Life Church, and this is the big question I've had. And he goes, I can answer that question for you. Like, what does that mean to be a fully devoted a follower of Christ? And he was like, I can answer that for you. And he goes, it's going to be a long answer though. It's not, I can't just give it to you. Like, it's not a simple answer, but he's like, come to this class. And that's when he invited me to RCA. And then he literally pulled me aside and said, don't tell your girlfriend, because if you guys do decide to pursue marriage, I don't want you to become Catholic just for her. And then he even said something that I respected so much. He was like, I'd rather you not become Catholic than just become Catholic for her. I want this to be a personal decision. It's something that you are actively making. And I was like, wow, they take this very seriously.
Oh yeah.
I really like this. And yeah, so it's great. It was just great to have those people that are willing to kind of plant themselves in your life and willing to walk with you, which is just great. Uh, well, that's awesome. So when once you decide and you start going through the RCA process, I'm sure you maybe had some of those classes where they're going over the role of the saints, or they're going over transubstantiation or whatever it was. Was there a specific topic for you that was like, okay, I can't, not I can't get over this, because obviously you did, but like it was tougher to get over that obstacle, like more so than others?
Well, by that time, no, because I had worked through all these things over the years. It was like,
Yeah,
and when you first get exposed to Catholicism, you have all of the objections, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
what about this? What about this? What about this? And
yeah.
what happens is you start to work through them. And when you really look at them and understand what the church teaches and why, stuff really makes sense. And you do get to a point where maybe some things are a little bit harder to accept. Like purgatory was kind of hard for me to understand at
Mm-hmm.
first. But once you understand the paradigm, right, of
Mm-hmm.
what is the church, the authority of the papacy, how
Mm-hmm.
Christ established the church, all of that type of authority, then it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of more about, okay, well, what does the church teach? There are two ways that I think people approach Catholicism. They can approach it and sort of go, well, here's what I think. Does what your church teach match up?
Mm-hmm.
And, for some people, the Catholic Church is kind of close to that. And they
Mm-hmm.
go, okay, great. I can be Catholic because I like this. I like that. I like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the wrong way to look at it,
Mm-hmm.
because if it still puts you in the center of it,
Yeah.
and I've talked to plenty of people like that who go, okay, well, yeah, I'm Catholic, but I can't accept, or I would
Mm.
be Catholic, but I can't accept what the church teaches about Mary's perpetual virginity, or maybe it's some social teaching like
Yeah.
contraception or something like that,
Yeah.
where they've clearly put themselves in the center, right? And said,
Yeah.
it's up to each church to sort of make its case to me about why it's, what it lines up with me. Well, to me, I
Mm.
think if that's how you approach Catholicism, you'll never make it,
Yeah.
because sooner or later you're going to bump up against something that you struggle with or disagree with, or that doesn't make sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to happen. The question is, what do you do with that?
Mhm.
And I had learned pretty quickly on that you can't approach the Catholic Church on your terms. You have to approach the church on its terms.
Mhm.
So for me, there wasn't like, um, once I made that decision to become Catholic, there was no more any of this. Well, yeah, but I don't know about this one. I don't know about that one. Because
Yeah.
then you live in that world where if you someone just opens up the wrong thing to you, and I talk to plenty of people like this who are like,
Mhm.
"Well, I'm just afraid to become Catholic, and then what do I do if I find out the Catholic Church teaches something I don't agree with?"
Mhm.
And I tell them, "But then you can't be a Catholic because
Yeah.
you have to get to a point where you put your trust in the church,
Mhm.
and it's not trying to live up to your standards, you're trying to live up to its standards."
Mhm.
So for me, like, I had already gotten through all those objections
Mhm.
before I decided to go through any kind of classes, and I didn't really go through classes. I met with my priest, like, once a week. So, I mean, I guess you could say that, him and I would
Mhm.
get together and talk about things, but I had already long passed the point of the objection because to become Catholic means that you accept the authority of the church to bind and
Mhm.
loose and to declare doctrine and
Yeah.
to teach doctrine. So you can't, like, hang on to your own stuff after that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I know folks would agree too because Focus, their very first, like when they have a little Bible study series, they recommend start with this in any group. And anytime my team director says anytime you have Protestants in the group, start with this study because it's just the best way to start because it starts with who am I and what am I made for? So it just starts from creation that we're made in sons of God and we're made in the image and likeness of God. Then it goes into who do people say that I am? So understanding that Jesus is God. Like Jesus is fully God and fully human. And very, very next thing is the establishment of the church. It's like if you
Mhm.
can establish the church, the papacy, the role of Mary as Queen Mother, and the establishment of priests, then a lot of everything else will kind of fall into place. But if you can get that centerpiece of who you are, who Jesus says he is, and then the establishment of the church, realistically, it honestly frees you up. I think a lot of people feels like it binds you, but it actually frees you up to just be like,
Mhm.
hey, the Catholic Church is the true church. Then it kind of frees you up to it's like, well, what does the Catholic Church say about this? And it's like, well, it must be right if it's the true church.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And I found too that in a conversation recently with someone, we were talking about Life Church, for example, because they were talking about the papacy and not understanding it, not fully on board and or able to believe that yet. And I actually kind of ended up comparing it to Life Church, and I feel like a place that has like a Craig Groeschel, who's like the main pastor, and he does these sermons, and then they've got campus pastors, and they've got like 200 plus, 300 plus. Well, I don't know what they're at now, but there's hundreds of campuses all over the country. It kind of acts as it's like they've established their own papacy,
It
their
is.
own
Yeah.
establishment. So it's actually kind of funny that people are so hesitant to get on board with that because it's just basically what each denomination has. They just have it maybe in a smaller sense within one building, or maybe it's within multiple campuses.
Well, it's interesting too because if you push them on that, oh, no, no, no,
Hmm.
that we don't have that. We don't believe our leader is infallible, you know,
Hmm.
and they almost come at that as though that's a good thing.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, well, we don't believe our leader's infallible. We're way better than you guys who believe your leader's infallible." And I'm thinking, I always think to myself, well, doesn't
Hmm.
that concern you?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you rather believe that your leader is
Hmm.
teaching the truth every
Yeah.
time and that you can trust that what he's saying about Christianity is true? Wouldn't you
Yeah.
rather believe that? But it's
Yeah.
almost like, but here's what this is getting at, Josh. That what it's
Hmm.
getting at is what people want is not to be told what's true.
Hmm.
They want to be able to decide what's true for themselves.
Hmm.
And that has crossed over into all kinds of Protestant Christianity,
Yeah.
evangelicalism or whatever, where people spend their time. Remember what I said earlier about looking for the church that agrees with me?
Hmm.
This is the center of that
Yeah.
because they're the most important person in that room, right?
Yeah.
So that's why when the mass, like you mentioned, your friends that go to the mass are like, oh, well, I didn't get anything out of this. I didn't get,
Hmm.
you know what? They're so used to being the most important person in the room. As a
Hmm.
visitor, you go to a Protestant church, it's all about you.
Yeah.
You get the special parking spot, you get the special coffee cup, you get the special seating. Everyone makes
Hmm.
a big deal because you're a visitor. Woo, woo, woo. And then you go to the Catholic Church, nobody cares that you're there. It's kind of
Yeah.
like because who's the most important person in the room? Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
literally. So
Hmm.
that's very jarring to the Protestant mind, who's used to
Yeah.
being the arbiter of all things true. So when
Mhm.
you say, well, our leader has been given authority by Jesus to teach the faith, you know,
Mhm.
in this way,
Yeah.
to them, they're like, "Oh, we don't like that. We'd rather have the guy that, you know, gives us the ability to question even him, so
Yeah.
that if he says something we don't agree with, we can still move on and be okay."
Yeah. And honestly, as you were talking that, I pictured in my head the rich young man, especially in Mark. I love the Gospel of Mark because there's one little bit that changed a little bit, or not changes, but is just a specific part. But it's like Jesus, when the rich young man comes to him, I love his response. Is like he looked at him, loved him, and said,
Mhm.
"You lack one thing." So even Jesus showed this model of like, it's not about you. It's not about like like your things and your what you're getting out of it and everything like that. It's like sell all your possessions and follow me. And I feel like in my Protestant days, I felt like it was very much instead of like pick up your cross, like that we're all called to do. I feel like in the Protestant world, it just seemed very much like, oh, leave your cross there. Like Jesus will take care of that. Just leave it there. And I started to feel very like fake. I started to feel very masked. I remember struggling with pornography or something, and people literally telling me it's like, well, hey, that's like that would be a better thing to do than to have sex with your girlfriend. So if that's causing you to avoid that, then that's a great thing and stuff like that. So I started to feel like it was like trying on different masks. It was just,
Wow.
yeah. And then when I got to the Catholic faith, I felt like everything was the opposite. It was just like
Mhm.
surrender everything. Like
Yeah.
confession was so hard for me not to get behind. I feel like that's actually one of the more straightforward ones in the Bible. But confession, just surrendering like everything over and just like getting rid of it, and instead of just trying to say like, no, that's just part of you, but like God loves you anyway. It's like God does love you, but he wants to take that from you. He doesn't want you to continue to wear it or continue to carry it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Well, that's awesome. So you had a ministry before, and then you're still doing what is, if I remember right, is it Down to Earth Ministry?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that, because that was actually something I kind of saw last minute, and I was like, oh, I'm going to ask about this. I know about the podcast and everything. I've been
Mhm.
watching that for a really long time. But yeah, tell me a little bit more about the ministry and all you guys do there.
Well, it really just kinda started. I never planned on doing any of this, when
Hmm.
I left my job in the church, I never in a million years thought I would do anything like this. I just
Hmm.
was like, "Okay, that's done." My wife and I had a photography business that we ran together,
Hmm.
and I was just working in that,
Yeah.
and my priest had actually told me, he said, "Keith, people are probably gonna wanna get you to, like, try to get you to do stuff because you were a pastor, but don't do anything like that for a year. Just, like, chill,"
Hmm.
and mostly heeded his advice. I did give a talk at a church that my friends went to in another
Hmm.
town that were, like, so excited I became Catholic, so I went and shared with them,
Hmm.
but that was never like it was a one-off,
Yeah.
and whatever. Well, so the year goes by.
Yeah. Hmm.
We're on this pilgrimage. While I'm on the pilgrimage, I get this idea from God of a book to write
Hmm.
about not really my conversion, but it's a book for converts called The Convert's Guide to Roman Catholicism, your first
Ooh.
year in the church. So it's like a practical, down to earth look at what life is like for new Catholics. So I started working on that book, just chipping away at it. And then after the year was, then my priest said, "Okay, your year's up." He goes, "I want you to give a talk at our parish." So I gave a talk at our parish one night, and a bunch of people showed up for it, and they recorded it on video. And they sent me the video, and I didn't know what to do with it, so I just made a
Hmm.
YouTube channel and put it up there.
Hmm.
And I did that another time, and so I had 2 videos up on this YouTube channel, and then people started contacting me. These videos started getting traction,
Hmm.
which was a complete shock to me. I just really, like, put them up there to archive them. I never
Yeah. Yeah.
tried to promote them. I didn't post them. I didn't do any of that stuff. I
Hmm.
didn't. And then that's what really led to everything happening. And in 2020, I was at the point where I had so many invitations to come and give talks and different things that I really felt like
Hmm.
I had to make a decision whether I was going to go down that road, or whether I
Hmm.
was going to stop doing it, because it was kind of at a point where I had to make a choice,
Yeah.
because my work life was very busy, and then now
Hmm.
this new ministry thing is starting to get busy. I was making YouTube videos by this time.
Hmm.
I'm just coming home from mass, and then we'd go shoot a video on something, just random idea about something, and they were doing really well.
Hmm.
So, like, in 2020, we made that decision, and then the pandemic happened,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
then that sort of shifted everything around. But in some ways, that God used that to push our ministry into a different level, because that really made me focus on
Hmm.
the digital side of things.
Yeah.
So now I travel around, I give talks. I have 2 different podcasts that I do. I do a daily rosary that I've been doing on my YouTube channel for over 5 years now.
Oh, wow.
We lead pilgrimages, and we just do everything we can to try to help people come to the faith. I've got 2 books now, and I'm working on the 3rd. So
Nice.
it's a lot of writing, it's a lot of speaking, probably less writing and more speaking,
Hmm.
and then a lot of stuff on video too.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. Where all have you guys gone on your pilgrimages?
We've been to Mexico City. We did Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Okay. Nice.
And then I went on a pilgrimage to Poland with the Coming Home Network last year.
Hmm.
And then we did our own pilgrimage to Rome this year in January. And now we're leading one to France in April of next year.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's something for us. That's like on our bucket list. We'll have to join you guys on one year.
It's a blast.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. My wife and I love going on these trips. They're so much fun. The community that forms
Yeah.
there. And we have people that have come with us on every single trip. And it's been fantastic.
Yeah, that's so awesome. We have a priest that takes people on the Camino, and they go. He goes like 3 or 4 times a year, and he takes different groups of parishioners, and he just loves the fact that you can get out of Tulsa, get somewhere that is just like out of your comfort zone, or doing something where you're going to actually see these places where these like holy and righteous people have been, and it's just like there's something different about it,
Yeah.
some different experience. And I know growing up, we were always the vacation people going like Breckenridge to ski or going down to Destin, Florida to the beach. And I know for me and my family, like I would much rather put our money into going to see some of these places, like going to take my kids to the Holy Land one day and going on pilgrimages to see some of these sites. And I just think it'd be a beautiful thing.
It's the best. Yeah.
Yeah. That is awesome. Well, we'll include all the links and stuff in this video and everything,
Cool.
so people can check that out. Yeah, that's super cool. I look forward to checking out those books too. I didn't know about the kind of the convert's guide to Catholicism. That's a cool idea, and I think something that our parish could really utilize. I think it'd be great. That'd be almost like a great gift to give someone after their
Oh, tons of people do that. Like
yeah,
I have a lot of people who give that book away to their RCIA classes after they're like at
yeah,
their confirmation. It's like, here you go. This will be for you.
yeah.
So
That's all.
it's been really received very well.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we'll have to. I'll stay in contact with you about that because that'd be really cool. We got I think 38 people coming into into
That's
the church at
amazing.
our parish. Yeah, it's been cool. We just had 26 come in, so to have another even bigger class coming in this Easter, we're just super excited. So I
Good
think
for
it'd be
you.
cool to do something special for those people to help them to go, because I know a lot of people that come into the faith, and it is kind of, you get on this high for a little bit, but just like any retreat high or whatever, you're gonna come down off of it. So it's preparing yourself and understanding, yeah, how to live out that life and what it's truly going to be like. Because I know if you get on that retreat high type feeling, you think that this is how it should feel. So when it doesn't feel like that, it's kind of like, oh man, my faith life must be going terrible. But yeah, to have some practicals to help people would be really cool. Cool to
Yeah.
have. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, I think to close this out, I think it'd be great to kind of give people some advice on if someone was watching this and they were like, man, he with his story, you know what, I haven't been giving Catholicism a fair chance. I'm kind of that person that's just always put my blinders up, my blockers up for that. Or maybe it's someone that's never even thought about it, but now they're like, maybe I should look into this. What would be your like best advice for someone in those shoes and
Who's
someone kind
looking
of
at Catholicism?
yeah, looking into Catholicism, maybe like someone that's put their blinders up before or have completely ignored it, but now they're like, well, maybe I should look into it.
Yeah.
Where would you say they should start, or what do you think that they should do?
Well, I think they should start by trying to find someone who is Catholic that knows their faith that they can
Mm,
talk to about it
mhm.
and ask questions, but also to read the catechism. You know,
Yeah.
the catechism of the Catholic Church is the best way for someone who doesn't understand Catholicism to learn what it teaches, because you have to
Mhm.
unlearn a lot of things that you think you know
Yeah.
when you're first looking at Catholicism. And I think the best way to do that is just to sit down and read the catechism, and then find someone that's local to you that knows their faith that can interact with you and ask, answer your questions
Mhm.
and talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Because you got to unlearn all this other stuff. The most important
Mhm.
thing you can do is learn what the church teaches and what the church actually is, because otherwise you're making decisions about the church based on things that aren't true or
Yeah.
misconceptions. a lot of Catholic apologetics is just correcting misconceptions. And when you do that, when you explain the why behind the what, it really begins to open the doors to people to see, oh, okay, this is what's going on. Then they can make a decision what they think about it, but they
Yeah.
have to understand what it is first.
Yeah. Now, would you recommend someone talk to a priest? Obviously, if they don't know one, you could just call a parish. But to make sure they're talking to someone they know, like if they have a friend that's Catholic, but maybe is one of those status quo Catholics, would you recommend? Like, how would someone know that someone knows their faith? Like, should they?
Well, I think a priest is kind of hard right now because
Mm-hmm,
priests are so busy and overworked. If you just call a parish, you're
mm-hmm.
probably not going to get a response. I mean, I can't tell how many people I talk to. They go, "Oh, I want to learn more about Catholicism," so I called a church parish and nobody called me back.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, that's
You
true.
know, I would say I wouldn't start with calling or emailing a parish. I would start with finding a parish that seems to have a lot going on, and then talk to someone and say, "Hey, I'd love to talk to that priest. Go talk to him in
Mm-hmm.
person
Yeah.
and see." But I think just like randomly calling a Catholic church,
Mm-hmm.
probably not the best thing to do because you
Yeah.
probably won't get a response back,
That's
unfortunately.
yeah.
So, I mean, if you can find a good priest, that's great, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you should put all your eggs in that basket.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, then we'll throw out there too that Focus is across the entire country. So if anyone's watching this and is like wants a good person, email us, and we have a whole network of people that we could contact. And I'm sure, unless you're in some small town in the middle of nowhere, if you're near a major city, I'm sure there's a missionary that we can get you in contact with as well. That would be more than happy to have those conversations. That's
That's a
our
great idea.
whole purpose. So, well, awesome. Well, Keith, thanks for joining us and sharing a little bit about your story. And yeah, we'd love to have you back on sometime and see how the third book's going, maybe when that's coming out to help promote it.
Sounds great. I appreciate the invitation, man.
Yeah, no problem. And you guys, we will see you guys next week. Dr. Carlo Brizard will be with us next week, and another great friend of ours of the show. He's been on a few times. So we hope you guys have a blessed week. We're praying for you guys, and we will talk to you soon. Wow. Again, thank you so much, Keith Nestor, for joining us. Like I said at the beginning, we were just so grateful to have him on the show. It was so awesome to be able to speak with him. It was kind of honestly, I've been watching him for so long, and I love his interview with Matt Fradd on Pints of Aquinas. So I'm going to put all of his links to his YouTube channel and to his website and everything in the description. I'm also going to link that episode to that Pints